Woo! It is a hot one today. Thankfully, our one of 299 Screaming Yellow 2004 Cobra has ice cold AC. It's like an ice box in here. So in the last video, we got this thing mechanically 100%, took it to the dyno, made some pulls, put down just a hair under 500 horsepower to the tire. And it is an absolute animal. So I've been driving it to work, driving it to the gym. We took it out to dinner and drinks last night. It's just a perfect driving, super comfortable, good to go car. And I'm having a blast with it. But I got a couple mods for it and a couple other things I want to do to it on the cosmetic side that should make a really big difference in the overall presentation of this car. Can't leave anything alone, you know? So that being said, just to allude to the mods we want to do, let's take a look at the boost gauge right now, the factory boost gauge. I'll put it in third. So here's third gear, watch that boost gauge. God, I love that whine. But that was like half throttle, and you can see obviously we buried the factory boost gauge. These things from the factory only came with about 8 pounds of boost with the stock pulley. So when you put the aftermarket pulleys on to make 12, 13, 14, whatever, you're obviously just gonna peg that boost gauge. I'd like to do something about that. Also, the car came with this dual pod A-pillar, pretty nice piece, but there's nothing in it. So we're gonna do something about that. So let's unfortunately get out of this beautiful ice cold AC, head back to the garage and get to work. All right, car's in the lift bay, and this is gonna be interesting because we haven't seen this car on the lift yet. I mean, in one of the first videos, I briefly kind of put it up on jacks. We know it's super clean under there, but I'm kind of excited to get a better view of what this thing looks like from underneath. And we're gonna need to get under there anyways to install the parts that I got on the bench here that I'll show you in a second. So let's get it up in the air. Alrighty, starting at the booty this time. Like I said, we already saw most of this in a previous video, but just a better view. Super clean car, just as you'd expect for 21,000 miles, but it is 20 years old. Floors, perfect. X-pipe has got some surface rust on it. That's literally probably from just the condensation that this car's been sitting in the garage recently, but it's an aftermarket X-pipe. I think it's MagnaFlow with some high flow cats on it. But yeah, super clean in here. The air conditioning is dripping, condensating because I was running that. But yeah, no leaks that I can see since we were last under here. Everything looks good. No, no real surprises. Super, super clean, mostly stock 04 Cobra. So let me show you what we got. Boom, couple gauges. Just as you guys probably suspected, I showed you the empty gauge pod, and this wideband, this is an Innovate wideband, so that's gonna display our air-fuel ratio. This was actually in the trunk of the car when I got it. So that was one gauge, already ready to be installed and fill one spot in the pod there. The other one I wasn't sure what to get, and I started thinking about the fact that we're running a stock boost gauge with an aftermarket pulley, so it was an easy decision to get boost gauge. The reason I went with autometer is because I like the silver face and orange needle kind of matches the factory SVT Cobra gauge cluster. There is a company out there that makes, I think it's Speed Hut, makes gauges that literally mimic the actual SVT Cobra gauges. But they're kind of expensive, and I think their lead times are like 10 weeks or something like that. I didn't want to wait that long, so I think this is close enough. This one is black, but I think, yeah, we can change the gauge face to white. So that'll be, and silver. You can put a silver trim ring on there. So that'll pretty much match what's on here, and the factory gauges pretty well too. So yeah, wideband and boost gauge going in. Boost gauge, pretty easy. You can leave that for now, but the wideband, obviously, we're gonna need to weld in. It's probably in here. Yep, there it is. I got a bunch on the shelf, even if they didn't have this, but we're gonna need to weld in our exhaust bung so that our wideband O2 sensor, which is probably a Bosch unit. Yep, Bosch O2 sensor can thread into the exhaust. And that can typically be done in either bank. Ideally, you want it kind of facing up. You see how the factory ones are facing up? And that's because you don't want to, do it down here. Then the water would just pool, condensation would pool, and it would fry the sensor. So ideally, you want it in the side. Even better would be angled up a little bit. So I'm going to try and find a spot on one of these pipes that's going to give us good access, good angle, good wiring. Get that welded in, and then we can figure out how we're going to fish the wire up through. I don't even remember on these cars. It's been so long since I've worked on them where the best firewall pass-through is, but we'll find it. But yeah, let's get right to work. Let's get out the drill our hole, get the welder out, weld in that bung, and install this wideband. Morning. Next day here. So yesterday, got some work done on the Cobra. As you guys saw, I got my O2 bung welded in, got the sensor in there, tightened up, and just kind of tucked the wires up near the transmission tunnel. The rest of this job is going to be easier to do off the lift because we want to get the doors wide open and do the wiring. So I think at this point, I would be ready to pull it off the lift. But let's pause on that thought for 1 second. Also, got the wideband gauge face swapped over to the white one with the silver trim. So that should match the autometer gauges and the stock gauges pretty well. So like I said, at this point, we're ready to do the wiring. The boost gauge is basically just hook it up to probably some sort of vacuum tee in the engine bay. So that one's really straightforward. Same thing with the wiring. We'll hook it up to the same power source as this one. We'll get into that. While this is on the lift, I've noticed another thing I'd like to do, and it's down here. So behind these beautiful factory chrome 17-inch Cobra wheels, the Cobra's got updated or upgraded brakes compared to the factory GTs. They're nothing special. They're not like a 6-piston Brembo or anything, but they are, 4-piston calipers with, I believe, a 13-inch rotor. And they, put the effort in to put the raised Cobra letters on the caliper itself. And these ones are looking a little ratty. They don't come painted or anything from the factory, just a raw cast aluminum. And someone put aftermarket rotors on this thing, and they look good, but the hat looks a little dingy. So you look away, the rest of this car is perfect, and the brakes just, a little bit lackluster. So like I said, these aren't anything crazy, so I don't want to, for lack of, even though it's a bright yellow car, I don't want to attract too much attention to them. So I'm not going to color match them and do yellow or anything, but I would like to clean them up. So I was thinking probably black. And then what you can do, I've done this on these cars a bunch of times, is you just paint the whole thing, and then you take some sandpaper on a flat piece of material like a sanding disc or something, and you can sand off the Cobra. So basically be black with the raised Cobra polished letters. It looks clean, nothing too crazy, but it does look a lot cleaner. And maybe we can clean up these hats as well. So that'll be easy to do while we're on the lift here. And I think we'll really clean up the wheel well area here, because these wheels are absolutely perfect. No chrome peeling or pitting or anything. So I'd like the calipers behind there to look equally clean. Same thing on the rear. See if we can't get those cleaned up a little bit. So I'm going to dig through the spray paint cabinet, see if I don't have some either satin or gloss black. Get these cleaned up while it's on the lift. We'll pull the wheels off. And it should clean it up a little bit. After that, we'll get it off the lift. Get ready to do some wiring. Just a quick side project, you know? Wasn't planning on doing this, but just noticed it and was kind of like, yeah, this is a good time to do it. So let's get to work. Market basket, continuing to provide me more for my dollar. Hate it. Well, hate part of it. Calipers came out great. Just gotta let those cure up. Nice satin black here. Then we'll sand off the Cobra letters and that'll look nice and clean. But I thought I'd give the hats a nice coat of silver. And, you know, just ate some lunch real quick, waited for this to dry up, and it's just way too loud. It just looks weird. I don't know, I thought it would look better, but it just looks weird. So I'm gonna go ahead and just redo it probably the way I should have done it, with just some flat black. I already did this side real quick. Hides it much better. You don't see like a bright defined silver line there. So I'm just gonna use some matte black that I have and just redo all these. So that's an hour and a half I'll never get back. You know, masking, taping, cleaning, and painting, but it just doesn't look right. It looks weird. Oh well, now we know. So matte black, get this done, lickety split, and be right back. right, guys, next day here. It was so humid and hot yesterday that this paint was taking forever to dry. I was really hoping to have this wrapped up yesterday, but you know, what are you gonna do about the weather? Anyways, as I'm pretty sure I mentioned, I ended up changing the hat color from silver to just flat black. So glad I did. It looks much less loud, more the look I was going for, just to clean this whole thing up. So here's our finished product. First of all, came through here with the degreaser, degreased this whole area. This thing looks like it just rolled off the factory floor. You guys that know these chassis know that they usually rot out at the shock towers here, and this thing looks brand new. Again, just as you'd expect. Cleaned up the Bilsteins, the factory spring still has the sticker on it. The K-member looks brand new. Like I said, cleaned up the rotor. All this gets covered by the wheel, so really you're only gonna see this area right here. Got the caliper sprayed in and sanded off the Cobra letters, so this is exactly the look that I was going for. Just really cleaned up this area. You know, nothing too crazy, but you know, way better than corroded calipers and corroded rotors, and you know, just really cleans it up. Also took it a step further and cleaned up the inner barrel of the wheels, including the chrome part on the first part of the lip there. So these are, you know, basically these wheels are just in unbelievable condition. Perfect on all four corners. I put one wheel on over here so you guys can see how you just get the Cobra kind of peeking out behind the wheels there. No more rusty hat, just kind of the flat black kind of hides it. Looks really nice, really clean. Clean Bilstein chilling back there. Same thing with the rears. Good to go. So let's get back to what we originally intended to do here and finish installing these gauges, which, like I said, is going to be a lot easier with the doors open out of the lift bay. So I got to shuffle some cars around. I'm going to take the Vet out, put it in the lift bay for another video that you guys are going to see here shortly. Vet content coming very soon. So yeah, let's get this last wheel on, back this thing out, shuffle some cars, pull it back in the other bay, get to wiring. Just another absolutely beautiful day here in New England. Pretty sure they said it rained like 25 out of 30 days in June, and it's probably rained 7 out of 11 days in July, so good stuff. All right, car's in here. I can open both doors fully without hitting either car here, so that's good. We've got all the gauges, as far as the wiring is concerned, laid out here. The boost gauge is mechanical, so really the only thing we need to do is run a vacuum line to some vacuum source. I believe it's gonna be over on the passenger side over there. And then also run some lighting. We're gonna do the green backlight because the SVT gauges also have a green backlight, so that'll match nice. So we'll probably just connect these to the headlight switch. The wideband is a little more complicated because we need to run power and ground to the same switch power source that we're going to use. The wideband's a little bit trickier because we need to run power and ground to a switch power source, because this is a electronic gauge, so it needs to turn on when the car's on and then turn off when the car's off. And then there's also a, I believe this is a headlight dimmer wire, so when we turn our headlights on, this will dim down a little bit, which is a nice feature. These other plugs this goes directly to the wideband O2 sensor. And then I think these plugs are for like data logging, which we're not going to mess with too much. I mean, this is a pretty simple setup. We know the tune is solid, but obviously this can be useful on a more complex car like this one, for example. Anyways, so I'm going to find a switched power source that I think I'm going to like inside the passenger compartment, which I've pulled up over here. And I think I've decided on fuse number 5 here, which is under the driver's side kick panel there, which is the instrument cluster and traction control switch. So that's going to be a switched power source, or should be anyways. We'll verify that with my test light. And then my plan is to use one of these add a fuse circuit thingies. Cleanest way to add a circuit to your factory fuse panel, not cut any wires, not hack anything in there. So that should be the best way to do it. But we'll check that that's a good power source here shortly. So yeah. My least favorite part of working on cars, and same with most people, is laying under the dash and trying to wire stuff. But it is what it is. It should be hopefully pretty painless. I got to pull the A-pillar down so we can install the gauges, but I'll bring you guys along. I think it's going to be worth it for this install. I have 2 important gauges so we can keep an eye on this car, make sure that it continues to live a long, healthy, and super fun life. So let's get to work. Let's get these gauges wired up, see how they look. Also, forgot to mention that I zip tied the O2 sensor connector basically right up on the underside of the shifter on the transmission. So I think we're going to feed the wideband O2 sensor wire up through the tunnel here. So we'll pull this shifter bezel out of the center console here and then feed that wire up over to here and then into the gauge. Also, side note, big pet peeve of mine, I feel like I hear this on other people's YouTube channels all the time. It's center console, not center council. A council is a group of people that make decisions on stuff, like a group of people. You don't have a group of people between you and the passenger seat. It's a center console, not a center council. God. Next day here, made a big mess, but made some progress. Got the wires for power for the wideband controller, as well as power for the lighting for the boost gauge run down through the pillar there, drilled into the original pillar. Someone else, obviously one of the previous owners, had already drilled into the original pillar, which is the way you're supposed to do it if you're installing one of these. So I didn't really feel too bad about doing that. But I cleaned up all the wiring back here off camera, kind of pulled it back through so there's very little slack. So really all that's left to do up here is just pin this back in, and these are good to go. Looks nice. Still need to do all my connections down here. Got my ADA circuit here. This is going to be for the illumination. So this will dim this when the headlights come on, and also provide our green backlight here when the headlights come on. And then I've run my power for this one into whatever fuse I said earlier in the video. But yeah, basically just need to make those connections at the fuse box, make the wiring all clean. Need to run my wideband hookup here that I ran through the center of the console there. You can see the MGW shifter here, but I'm just going to run that right under the dash and then up and over through here. We'll make sure everything's super clean, zip tied, very neat. And then the last thing we need to do is run the boost line over to a vacuum or boost source. Thankfully, on these cars, that yellow line right there, I do remember that from way back in my Cobra days, 10 plus years ago. That yellow line is the factory line that goes to your factory boost gauge. And the autometer gauge came with a T, so we can just T right into that somewhere over here. And again, run it through behind the radio there, and we'll have our boost reference there. So, getting close, a couple things left to do. Made a big mess, but we're getting there. Let's finish this up, clean up, go for a ride. Alrighty guys, we are done. Still need to clean up. I just want to make sure we test everything before I kill myself cleaning up. Not too bad of a mess, but anytime you do wiring under the dash, you know, zip ties, clips, stuff like that. But yeah, super clean install. Like I said, I think it matches the factory gauges pretty well. Not too obnoxious, good visibility, and I think we should be good to go. So let's test these out. Like I said, the boost gauge is mechanical, so it's probably not going to do much when we first turn the key here, but let's see what the wideband does. HTR probably means heater, heating up. Let's give that a second. Let's test the lights while we're at it. Oh yeah, it'd be hard for you guys to see that, but there's a green glow there, and then also let's see if this thing dims. Oh yeah. Okay, so I think wiring wise we're good, but yeah, let's fire this thing up. Oh, now it's calibrating. Should probably read the manual real quick. Be right back. Alright, so apparently I accidentally activated a calibration procedure somehow, but it's supposed to be done in a free pipe, meaning the sensor is completely removed, which we obviously didn't do, but the car hasn't run in a day, so it should be close enough, but we'll see. Let's see if it works. Let's fire this thing up. See if we get a vacuum reading on our boost gauge there too. 16, 17 inches of vacuum. This thing's heating up again. Outside, sounding as good as ever, but let's let this thing warm up for a minute and take it for a drive, make sure our gauges work. Man, this car and this lighting just gets me every time. So cool. Keep in mind, I have not washed this thing, period, under my ownership. And I think the previous owner said that he hadn't washed it since like February or March. So this is an unwashed condition right here. But we're gonna do something about that shortly. But anyways, letting the car warm up, just took it for a short drive. Everything seems to be working great. Boost gauge registers, lighting works perfectly. The wideband is reading well. It seems like it's idling around 15 and a half, 16 to 1, which isn't unheard of at idle, but we'll see what it does more importantly under boost. It should dip down to around 11 and a half, 11.8 maybe, and that's what's most important. But yeah, super excited with how this came out. Like I said, looks super clean, matches the factory gauges really well, and like I said, you pull this guy here, boom, there's your green glow that matches the factory gauges, and this guy dims right here. So let's get into some boost and see how it does. Alright guys, let's give it a little stab here in third gear. Like I said, we should see about 13 pounds of boost, and we should see this dip into the mid-ish 11s. So here we go. Perfect. Then the car goes into deceleration fuel cutoffs. So that's what you're hearing. It pegs lean. You can hear the car is just engine braking right now. That's normal. Ton of vacuum. Get my foot back on the gas and we come back. Works perfectly. And that Eaton wine never gets old, man. Beautiful night. All right, let's do one more quick stab in second. We'll see if these tires will hold. Oh yeah. Woo! Man, this thing always puts a smile on my face. That wine, it's just something else. But anyways, our gauges are working perfect. Wideband is perfect. I think I was trying to drive and film in Mexico, of course. But I think our wideband was at like 11.6, 11.7. Rock solid, which is absolutely perfect for a boosted motor on 93 octane. Boost gauge was exactly where we thought it would be at like 12, 13 pounds, depending on the gear and load. So yeah, I'm calling this a win. Our lighting works, everything works. There's two parameters you're gonna monitor on a boosted motor. Wideband's one, boost is another one. Those are probably the only two that I would monitor, and the most two critical ones that you can monitor. on a force induction application. Your boost, for obvious reasons, to tell how much pressure you're jamming down the yap of your motor there, and then your wideband is going to tell you a whole host of things. You know, is your fuel pressure good? Do you have an injector problem? You know, lean is mean, but you're going to blow up a motor. So if you want your engine to last, keep an eye on your wideband during wide open pulls, and you should be in good shape. So also got those brakes done. As far as cleaning those up, those look awesome. Everything on this car is looking really good. We're not done yet though. Like I said, we have not even touched the cosmetic side of this thing yet. We're gonna get into that in the next video, and this thing's gonna be looking like it's 2004 again. All that being said, it's a beautiful night. I'm gonna cruise a little more. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, consider giving it a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below. We'll see you in the next one.